This pissed me off. I just recorded this whole thing and then my app decided not to work on me, so now I have to record it again. Anyways, how are you guys? Chapter 7. What are you doing? Kageyama asked, his voice raising to a volume below a yell, but still loud. His arm resting on the wall above Wayen's head as he looked down at her, eyes narrowed. Her hands were inching toward his chest, though whether to push him away or grab his shirt to make him listen, he didn't know. I don't know what you mean, the tennis player answered with a slight tremble to her voice. Kageyama never acted impulsively in this way. That was Hinata's job, and he was so close, she was sure that he could hear her erratically racing heartbeat. You're helping me. Kageyama pushed backwards, so he was just standing in front of Wayen, one of his hands on his hips and the other dangling by his side. Why? She had to give an ironic laugh. Both of them were well aware she found nothing funny. Do you know why everyone knows me as the Kageyama singles champion? No, he answered, surprised by the question. The conversation had quickly veered in an unexpected direction, but he heard her out. Wayen slid down the wall to sit, her knees propped up in front of her with her arms draped around her shins as she stared at nothing. Kageyama joined her as she began to speak. I'm Kageyama's champion, not because I'm good or I win everything, she explained. I'm the singles champion because I don't play doubles well, because I can't seem to play well with anyone at Kageyama, and I have lost almost every single doubles match. The force of the words blew him a step backwards as he considered the implications he'd missed all along. She was just like him, just like him. It was laughably ridiculous. How hadn't he noticed it before? How her head had dropped when her 3 teammates left her behind the day he first met her? How she always played at Karasuno, performing serve after serve, and arrived at the volleyball gym up to an hour later than Yumi and her team. Who told you to help me? He asked softly. Who knew that I needed it? Sugawara, Wayen admitted, but please don't get mad or anything. Everyone needs a little help once in a while. She was right, and Kageyama knew it more honestly than he knew a lot of things, and he could not stop himself from brushing some of her hair-colored hair out of her eyes as he said, Thank you. Wayen felt heat rise in her cheeks, forcing herself to lock her eye-colored eyes onto the blue ones so close to her. Kageyama's black hair hung messily around his head, slight drops of sweat gleaming on his light skin from the physical exertion of volleyball. His hand that held him up was propped behind Wayen, and he was, once again, so agonizingly close. Does he not know how attractive he is? Does he not know what personal space is? She combated a blush as she simply grinned, climbing to her feet with a, no problem. Kageyama found himself slightly disappointed as she walked away from him, ducking under the net to pick up the remaining balls. No, he would not. He couldn't just watch her walk away from him. Not the only person who he'd ever felt so close to, the only person who was the same. Kageyama ran after her, his shoes squeaking loudly on the clean floors of the gym, his large hand catching her wrist and spinning her around. What he hadn't planned for was Wayen being just a little uncoordinated. She spun a couple of times too many, ending up flying into his chest with a great deal of force, her hands unwittingly pushing him to the ground. His arms rose up to grab her to stop himself from tumbling to the floor, but they both ended up falling anyway. Kageyama hit the tiles on his back with a loud oof, Wayen landing on top of him, and the impact sending them both rolling until she somehow ended up underneath him, both his knees braced on either side of her body and his hands planted on either side of her head, keeping him just above her. The space between them couldn't have been more than a couple of centimeters. So much closer than any time before. Each of them was panting from a mixture of exertion and shock, flushes rising in their cheeks, and yet some tiny part of Yin found herself wishing that neither one of them would move. Not for a long, long time. Not ever. The word, the letter, was more than a little exhale. Her face was on fire, her heart beating so quickly she was surprised it didn't burst from her chest. Kageyama? He was also immensely flustered at the attractive tennis player who was right underneath him. Her hair-colored hair was mist from the previous minutes of excitement. Her eye-colored eyes irresistibly wide and glimmering with 1,000 unreadable emotions. Though she didn't look like the most put-together person in the history of Japan, she was still Yin, and that was pretty attractive to Kageyama. Yin. Her name falling from his lips felt like a song, and her breath hitched, every fiber of her being extraordinarily aware of how close she was to him. My name is Tobio. I'll be watching your final, and I'll be cheering you on. The words came out bluntly, and they weren't exactly the most charming 3 sentences ever, but in some way they were perfect. Her teammates at Kageyama hadn't given her any well wishes, instead just saying something along the lines of, "You shouldn't spend so much time at Karasuno." Yet Kageyama had said something, and to her confusion and surprise and overwhelmingly general emotion, it made her want to kiss him. Hey everyone, so like I said, I'm kind of pissed that I had to reread this, but you know what? Anything for you guys. So yeah, have an amazing day, have an amazing night, have an amazing afternoon, whenever you are, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with Chapter 8.